Hello, everybody. My name is Marnie. I am the Chief Commercial and Partnerships Officer for Acumen, which is part of Sun MS4 Group. And I am joined today by some wonderful colleagues who are all deeply passionate about and deeply insightful about Southeast Asia. So we just launched in January a report called Key Trends Southeast Asia. And we want to share a little bit about that with you. But before we do, I want to learn a little bit about my colleagues and share that with you. So, Bun, starting with you.
My name is Bai, and I'm the Senior Manager for Partner Success in Vietnam. And I think that I am the only one that not have the director role on my title.
Oh, sounds like a request.
And my connection with the region starting, I think, from when I started working for the Dutch government office in promoting higher education in Vietnam, and obviously later on the region. And from then I decided that, okay, this is going to be my mission, this is going to be my region, and this is going to be my career. So that's where I'm now with Acumen.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
My name is Raji Sogamo, and I'm the Country Director for Malaysia and Head of Customer Experience for Southeast Asia, Acumen. I've recently joined Acumen and really pleased to be part of the organization. I've been in the sector for about almost 18 years now, and I've had the opportunity to expose myself in a wide spectrum of, the education sector, marketing, student recruitment, mainly international student recruitment, covering Southeast Asia and other regions. And I'm really passionate about this industry. And now being able to, provide success for our partner universities really gives me the excitement, and I'm very enthusiastic about it especially because after the pandemic, there's a lot of changes within the sector itself and how universities operate. And I think being part of this whole mission and, this is really, really something that's exciting for me.
Great. So I started the journey as an international student myself in 1994. That gives away my age. I said really old.
Postgrad or undergrad?
Postgrad. So I've spent over half my life in the international education sector, having walked in the shoes of an international student and then being a professional that really promotes international education. Why Southeast Asia is so important to me? I'm originally from Malaysia, so I have a real passion to ensure that Southeast Asian students get an opportunity to get an international education.
Thank you.
Heike.
Right there. So my name's Heike Manning. I'm the Executive Director for Acumen for Southeast Asia. So based here in Ho Chi Minh City, where we're broadcasting from today. And I'm actually, I'm probably of everyone, I'm probably the newest to international education. So my dark secret is I'm a recovering diplomat. So I was 20 years a diplomat for New Zealand. And serving around the world. And then my last posting before I'm not going to say retired, before I changed careers was in Vietnam. And so my former career led me to Vietnam about 12 years ago, and I've been here ever since. And really, watching and being a part of this incredibly dynamic country and seeing it just move ahead so fast. And with that as well, seeing the development of the international education sector here in Vietnam.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all very much. So my link to Southeast Asia and my international education piece probably started, I learned Indonesian at university. And so I was very excited in my first job to be able to go and live in Indonesia for 3 years, working for an Australian university. That then led to an opportunity to move to Vietnam, where I lived in Ho Chi Minh City for 11 years, working in international education. 2 boys born in Vietnam. That made a very special link to the country. And then 9 years in Singapore. So a lot of time spent in the region, and a real believer in the importance of this region. And I'm trying to think of a word that's more articulate than specialness. But I'm going to go with the specialness of Southeast Asia. It's an incredibly wonderful part of the world that I'm, very excited that we're getting to talk about today. So maybe let me just momentarily set the scene for a moment. So in 2022, there were 350,000 students from Southeast Asia studying higher education abroad. Huge numbers. We also know from our research and also from our permanent presence across the region that there is a rise in intra-Asia mobility, and that's being certainly escalated with the post-pandemic era. We know that Southeast Asia is a major T&E hub, particularly Singapore, Malaysia, but increasingly Vietnam, Indonesia as well. We know that there is a massive rise in the number of international and bilingual schools across the region. We know that there is a shifting pattern of program of study, level of study, take Malaysia as an example. And we know that the role of education agents is changing as parents and students become more sophisticated. The way they're working with very important education agents changes. So we know that. We live and breathe that. In that context, I want to ask you all a couple of questions. So maybe, Heike, if I can start with you.
Sure.
How do you see the demand for international education in the region in the coming years?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to see an increase in terms of demand for quality education, and quality education can be delivered in many ways. It can be delivered through a local system, and we are actually seeing improvements in the local education system, not least in places like Malaysia and Singapore, where we have actually really, really good schools and colleges already. But also in terms of how quality education is provided through international providers, either operating in the region or by providing their education to students who are travelling abroad to the UK or to New Zealand or Australia or wherever it is they may go. So I think that demand, which is driven by very strong cultural factors, but also by just the growing wealth in the region, I think that those sort of underlying trends are going to continue to drive really, really strong demand for international education in the region. And I think the final point just to say is that I think, at the base of all this is demographics. Mm-hmm. And so we know that, and you see in the report that we've done that, the bulk of the young population are in 3 countries. And maybe someone else will talk about that in a minute. But the point is that, in order to look at where future demand is going to be, it's going to be underpinned fundamentally by those demographics in the region as well.
Thanks, Heike. Heike made a point around cultural demographics, the financial situation and changes. Can you touch for me on both the same question, which is how you see the demand in the coming years, but also maybe just lead in on that cultural point, just expand on that comment Heike made?
I think it's really important to emphasize the fact that Southeast Asia is not one culture. It's a myriad of cultures, even within one country.
Yeah.
And that really does inform decision-making, both at government level or down to individual level. And I think we as international education providers, we need to be really mindful of that. I think on where I see future growth for the region, I think we mustn't forget the importance and the rise of vocational education training. And I think, for many countries like the UK, for example, HE within FE was an agenda and is a continued agenda. And I think for many of the countries in Southeast Asia, maybe I would call them mature markets perhaps, there is going to be that need. And I think it's a real opportunity for international institutions, not just universities, to embrace the opportunities of Southeast Asia.
Yeah, a really important point because, yes, we work with 82 universities, but we also work with a range of schools, K-12 schools and vocational providers, and absolutely really important point too. Fun.
Yes.
So feel free to touch on that question as well. But moving on to the next one, what do you think is the most important trend or the most important development to watch for?
I think the key point the matter most to me now is I think the growing demand of Vietnamese parents in seeing their kids' future in the country. So I think that I will relate again to the report that we did last year for Vietnam, where we asked 1,000 Vietnamese parents in their view. And I think that both Heike and I share the same view, is that even ask the same question that where do you see your child's future is overseas or Vietnam 10 years, 15 years ago? We're going to see a 70% parents want to say, where do I want to go overseas? And then they can't have a chance to be there. Right now it's a 50-50, so there's a big change. What does it mean? It means a lot to us. As how can I say? There's the people who's going to pay for the tuition fee, but also importantly the people who will invest and be present here in the market. So with that in mind, that also means that there's an opportunity that students will still outbound level from mobility, and also there will be inbound staying, looking for international quality standard in Vietnam, either in Vietnam universities or at a branch campus or so on. So to me, that is a growing trend that I can see from Vietnam, and probably across the region as well. You can see the numbers of branch campus in Indonesia, in Malaysia, from Australian providers, and of course, we will have more from other English-speaking countries as well. Yeah, so that will be my take on this.
Thanks, Bun.
Yeah.
Bunji, same question for you. So what do you think is the most important trend or the most important development that we should be suggesting people watch for?
When I was looking into the key trend reports that we did, right, one thing that I see that is common within all the 5 trends that we developed, I think when we see there's a lot of interest for Asian education, and then TNE is changing as well. Agents' role is changing because of that. I think one of the trends that's continuing to grow in the next few years will be the value that we can provide. What I mean by that is now parents, just to echo Bang's point on, parents' way of thinking now, I think what we have seen in Malaysia and other regions, parents are looking for value in terms of financial investment that they're going to put into the education, and also on the quality of education, like what Heike mentioned earlier. So I think to conclude all this, right, I think universities should look at what is the overall value that they can provide. High quality in a very, taking into consideration the financial capacity of, the markets that we are going into. And really important to study the spending capacity of each country as well in the region. So I think that will help institutions to look at their pricing strategies for the Southeast Asian market, and in the same time also providing high quality education. Yeah, and that I think will really help them to be sustainable while recruiting in Southeast Asia.
Mani, can I just add to that, if that's it? Because I think Raji made a really important point, and so did Pao. I think one thing for us to really remember as well is Southeast Asia itself is a hub. It's a hub for international education. So as parents become more quality conscious, more safety conscious, more price conscious, they also want to see the return on investment, and having international standard education easily available in that Southeast Asia corridor is really important. So it needs to be something that I believe universities and institutions need to bear in mind, and that's where that whole TNE agenda becomes important as well.
And maybe just to pick up on that, I think, one of the big buzzwords is around diversification at the moment, especially, given various sort of different trends in play and different source markets, but also in terms of migration policies and things like that. And often when we think about the discussion around diversification, we might be talking about diversification of markets. So, for example, okay, we've got, the India market, we've got like lots and lots of students from India. We need to look at a different market. And of course, Southeast Asia is very much a region that people should be looking at. But I think diversification also is really, really critical when you come to look at the way in which the education is being delivered.
Yes.
And this is back to the points that everyone else has been making, which is that actually transnational education and figuring out partnerships to be able to deliver some or all of your education in the region is absolutely critical as a diversification strategy. This idea, and particularly as the younger generation become more and more concerned about sustainability and about air miles and all these things, this idea that students are just going to do the same thing they've done over the last 30 years, which is get on a plane, they go and study at the University of wherever in the UK.
Yeah.
It will still happen, absolutely. And we're very bullish on, I think, outbound student mobility from the region. But increasingly, people will be looking for different options. And so I think when we're talking about diversification, I think that's an absolutely critical part of the response by institutions when they are looking at coming into Southeast Asia.
Yeah, so diversify to drive value.
Yeah. And just on that as well, sorry, we're on a roll with it, but just on that as well, I think, they also need to look at it from the eyes of the local students, the UK students, the Australian students, the US students who also want to have a global experience. So they will want to come to Southeast Asia, for example, which has a hub. And I think an institution that is able to kind of enable movement from both sides really see lots of opportunities, not just international students, but all students.
Yes, spot on. Yeah,
Very powerful.
Sweet.
All right, so moving on to our next and possibly final question. Tell me about how you think, given all that we've talked about with trends or developments to what for, how should institutions, education organisations be positioning themselves for the future in the Southeast Asian context?
I think I'm speaking now also from the view of having a brother, younger brothers who will soon finish up his undergrad level. The first thing that we coming in back in the past couple of months, because he gonna have 1 year left, is where's your internship? What you want to do with your internship? It's not about which company or which corporate that you want to try out on for your management training programs, but it's about what can you do as an intern at a specific company. And then from there, you grow yourself. And of course, we have some kind of, strategic thinking already from the beginning. While I said, we didn't only have one marketing person in the family, the next guy should be a technical one. So even now on the food industry, now, then the reason I said about employability is because when I look at this, it's about that is only for a family who pay for a tuition fee in Vietnam. Now imagine if you pay 10 times of that overseas in 3 years, 4 years, and along that's going to be some long haul flight from the parents to the country just to visit the son of a daughter. With all that in mind, save the return on investment and I think the return on investment for parents has always been, what's next? What's the career? Which company that they will work in? How will they become enjoy the legal force?
So how do you see that being a responsibility of the institutions?
Equip the student with skill. The skill not for now, for the current legal market, but the skill and by the time they graduate, the whole market needs. Of course, we talk a lot about 21st century skill. We're talking a lot about cognitive thinking skill, optical thinking skill. We have to emphasize that, but we need to really prepare and I will put on my marketing hat here, is that you have to be able to tell the student and the parents that, this is my percentage of my students graduated and how much time they got a job and the job they love. So right now we already get into the stage where universities, some are now talking about employability status. But I think if you go a little forward, you want to say, yes, my student graduated and have a job within a certain month, and this is their happiness with their choice of their current job through our education. And I think that will be a click on, because of course people know that the salary increase will come in the next 5-10 years when they reach their top of their career. But right now, if you're talking about marketing for recruitment, this is going to be, I think, the key message that they deliver to parents in this region. Of course, don't forget they are Asian parents. You get very frightened, like, things that parents have different thinking. It's sort of like, okay, you're going this, you're doing it sectors, not because you like it, because you're going to handle to that. So I think that is, my take on this. Sorry, a lot.
That's great.
Yeah. See, in terms of how institutions should position themselves in the future, it's about accessibility. So being accessible. What the pandemic has really shown is you need to think beyond your border. So if there is another pandemic or if the borders suddenly close, you cannot be in a position where your provision is not accessible because you're far away. So being accessible, and that accessibility would mean, thinking about in-market delivery, thinking about opportunities where, students can take your courses, but your courses are those that are accessible and needed for the government. So really thinking about what product you're selling and making that, if it needs to be market specific, then that's what you do. But you are being very strategic in the way you sell. In other words, your products.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, Carl.
So how should institutions be positioning themselves for the future here in Southeast Asia? I think, if I had the opportunity to answer that question first, I would have probably taken Bung's answer, which is, a real focus on employability and ROI, I think is critical. But I think one of the other things that institutions should be thinking about is, we know that universities from around the world, from the UK, from Australia, from New Zealand, there's a lot of, there's a lot of financial considerations and even some financial stress. And so where they're able to place their resources and their engagement in the region, it's not a blank check. Decisions and choices need to be made. And I think my advice would be, we come back to the same thing each time, which is demographics. And even though we have many clients and a big focus, importantly so, on sort of more mature markets like Malaysia and Singapore, what we would be recommending is we'd be saying, for the future, if you're not paying attention to these markets yet, you need to be looking at Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. It's because these three markets account for 75% of all the young people across this region of 700 million people. And don't put all your eggs in those baskets, but start to place some bets for the future. And that would be my recommendation. And that's, I think, probably where we as Acumen can come in and help, as well as sort of really help institutions understand and assess where it is that their specific institution might succeed best in this region.
And a way to make those choices.
Exactly right.
Thanks, Haka.
Yeah.
Raji, right? When I think about the question, right, how institutions should be positioning themselves in Southeast Asia, to echo some of the points brought up by Val, Cecilia, and also Heike, I think to be able to provide good employability in the future, right, and to have programs that really drive the interest of the students. I think it's really important for institutions to be highly tech focused in their delivery. It's really, really important because we hear and see a lot of, new things like artificial intelligence, and also providing tech solution is no longer just for IT or cybersecurity anymore. Almost every different subjects and also disciplines have tech solutions embedded into it. So I think by doing that, universities are able to provide better employability options for the students, and also for them to be industry ready in the coming 5 to 10 years, right? So it's really important for universities to start. Most of them are already doing that, right? But I think at a larger scale, on various disciplines, it's really important to embed that industry readiness in the students by providing good tech solutions.
Great, thank you. To wrap up, could I just check, would anyone like to add anything about Southeast Asia region?
We always, I've heard this many times in recent times in newspapers, in social platforms. Southeast Asia, if I may say that, Southeast Asia is the next superpower. If I may say that. So I think it's very true in many contexts, right? Education is one of it. And I think we can see that by one of the trends that we highlighted in our key trend report, there's a huge intra-Asian student mobility, and how Asian countries are also booming in terms of competing with each other in terms of providing the best education that really is going to drive the future. So I think it's really important for international universities to take note of this and to understand what these offerings are and how they can be more attractive in terms of providing solutions for students.
Great.
Maybe if I could just make one final comment as well. I think one of the reasons why we did the key trends report for Southeast Asia was because we wanted to highlight that, this region is not static. It's changing, and it's changing so quickly. And, I've seen it in almost 12 years I've been living in Vietnam now. This country has gone from, it's just changing so fast in front of your eyes. And so I think, for international institutions as well, not assuming that what worked yesterday will work tomorrow, I think it's really important. Checking your assumptions, making sure you're talking to stakeholders in the region, whether it's with agents, whether it's with schools, whether it's with us, for example, but really checking your assumptions. And also really understanding that this market is also becoming increasingly sophisticated. Sophisticated in its tastes, sophisticated in terms of the way in which parents understand international education and the choices they're going to make for their family. So it's moving super quick. And I think that would probably be my key message to finish from my side, at least anyway. It's why we did the report. This place is changing. Check your assumptions. But come here because there's so much going on, and it's a key market globally for both outbound students and for transnational education.
Wise words.
I think for me, Southeast Asia, there's so much more that Southeast Asia can offer. And yes, the demographics is there, and there is scope for young people to improve, but the passion that is in Southeast Asia is education is so important. It is the main thing. It's the driver for families. It helps to create a better life. And because of that, the investment will always be there. And it's a real opportunity for us to give, but also to learn.
I think all of us already give a good reason why international students should be in the region. And I think maybe on my side, just a tactical thinking is be focused. When you position yourself into, either you want to come into with reliability or with suitable or with tech or with vocational, be focused. Pick your battle. And for example, it's easy if you are number one global ranking in certain subjects. You should go into the market and wave that flag.
Float it.
Yeah. Instead of you come back to the global ranking, and just wait. With the sophistication of the parents, they have eyes now, and they will listen to that argument. So that will be my take for the region.
Thank you. Thank all four of you very much for your insights, and thank you for listening to us. T-Trend Southeast Asia Report by Acumen is available for download free of charge. We would love to see you in Southeast Asia and love to help you with any of the questions that you have. Thanks.